Today we're going to be putting a wiper kit on this 2018 General 1000. The wiper is mounted at the top of the windshield, which I don't have in here right now. But the wiper mounts in this general area. What makes this one a little different is this already has a roof and the Polaris radio installed. The wiper does work with it, but we need to modify the radio and slide the mirror over, and I will be showing you how to do that. If you're just putting a wiper in a machine that does not have the overhead radio or a mirror, you can probably just skip the first few minutes of this video and then get into the portion where we're actually putting the wiper on the windshield and running the wires. The wiper is mounted up top, and then the wires are ran down through one of the roll cage members across the dash, and then everything kind of comes out by all that other wiring there. I already have the top cap off of this one. I actually just put a heater in this one, so I never put the top cap back on. I believe that is the first step in the instructions, but first we're going to hop and see what's in the box. Here's everything out of the box. The part number for this kit is 2881090. It is the OEM Polaris kit. So we got the instructions here. Obviously read through these and page through them as you watch the video. Sometimes I go a little fast or don't cover anything in explicit detail, but obviously look through these to make sure you don't miss anything in case I skip something in the steps. I've put a few of these in. You got the wiper. I just put the arm and the blade together already. Washer tank, the wiper motor itself, the bracket for the washer tank, the wiring harness and the tube for the washer fluid, some switches, and then some hardware. First thing I'm going to do is remove the roof, if you have one on there. That is those two bolts right there, and then that bracket comes off, and then this entire back panel kind of pulls back and up. Once you clear the top of the roll cage, then the entire roof can slide forward to release those claws that are grabbing into this piece of plastic right there. So start by getting those two bolts out in that bracket, and we can take the roof off pretty easily. Here we have the roof off. Now what I'm going to want to do is take this panel off while keeping the radio installed. I'm going to attempt to do this while the radio is still in the machine. And if you don't have the radio in the machine, if you got it out of the box, it'll be even easier. But I'm going to try to see if this works. You need to take out this screw, that screw, those four on the top, and then there's two more on that side, just like this one. Be careful when you take these out. There's a little spacer that's underneath between kind of the radio and this piece of plastic here. Make sure that doesn't get lost. So there should be 8 screws total, I believe. I think we need to leave those two on each side to keep the radio in place. So I'm going to pull those screws off, and then I believe this whole thing can actually slide forward and come off. There was 2 more screws that I forgot. This one right here, and then that one right there. Once those come out, I dropped a couple spacers, even though I said to watch out for that, so they might come falling out. This whole thing pulls out. And what we're left with is kind of the exposed part of the radio up there. And what we need to do is, right where that sticker is, if wiper kit is being installed, cut along the outside of this label for the mirror location. So you literally take a knife, cut the outside of that sticker, through the plastic out, and then we're going to be sliding the mirror over, I don't know, about 6 inches or so. And then kind of this scribe mark here, all the way over, kind of that weird shape, trapezoidal shape. We need to cut that out because the wiper body actually needs to fit in there. Certainly this would be easiest to do with the the radio out of the machine, but being I don't want to have to undo all the wiring and the rest of the bolts, I'm going to try to cut that out with a utility knife while it's in the machine. So I need to cut out this, just follow the line to connect the dots, and then cut out that sticker. We move the mirror over, and then we'll be able to mount the wiper to the windshield, and now that plastic won't be in the way. So I'm going to get that cut out. Here I got that piece of plastic cut out. Now I'm going to stick my Allen wrench through this hole so I can loosen that and slide the mirror over to this position. Here I've cut out that template I just used a utility knife. It was really soft. I didn't need anything else. You know, obviously just followed the lines, and the one under this bar is a little hard to get at. If you kind of just cut everything else out and then just scar that one, you can kind of just bend it and it snaps. Move the mirror over and then tighten that down with that Allen that goes through that hole. We've done the modifying that we need to do. Now we can just hop into the instructions and follow through with them. We've already taken off the top cap. Now we got to take the wiring harness that goes through the ROPS system and peel the bushing off of there, grommet. So we need to get this off by sliding it and actually cut it a little bit bigger so that we're able to slide this hose through it as well. I kind of cut some marks in that grommet so that there's more room to slide the hose in. Now we're actually running the harness. It does go through the ROPS system. So the top end is going to be these two plugs. There's the wiper plug, and then there's a dome light plug that just comes on this unit. And then the bottom, you have a series of bullet connectors, which is going to connect to the main wiring harness once we have it ran. So what we need to do is take that harness and slide the bullet connectors. I can't see it very well, there's actually a hole here. Put the bullet connectors in there, feed it down through, and then they will be coming out right here. And then they kind of go through this little channel and end up right about here, where we will connect it to the main wiring harness once we run that as well. So we're going to run both the harnesses. This is the hardest one just because we have to run it up through the tube. And there should be the plug and then another 3 feet or so of that other plug for like a dome light. Tried sliding it down and I couldn't get those bullets to go through the bottom hole very easily. So I just took a piece of mechanics wire and a little electrical tape, and I think it's going to make it a little easier to get out the bottom. So just feed it through. And I was having an issue with it lining up with the hole at the bottom. This is kind of hard to do. You just kind of need to keep poking at it until you get it to come out the bottom hole. And then once you get the wire started, you can grab it and pull the rest through until you get to the grommet location, or where it was originally on the harness. And if it does need to move later, that's fine. And then the grommet just squeezes into that hole we had there so that the wires aren't leaning up against the sharp edges. Alright, after fighting with this thing for like 15 minutes, I decided to take a different approach. I've done these many times in the past. I just ran into an issue with it wanting to come out the bottom, so I just took a little weight, which just happened to be like a terminal connector, just taped that to a piece of wire, and then I was able to slide it through and eventually find the hole at the bottom. Now I can take and tape the harness onto this wire. We do want to run the water hose at the same time. I guess I never said that, but yeah, the water hose goes at the same time. And then we will tape those to this wire, and we should be able to pull the whole works through just by pulling this white wire through all at the same time. So here's how it looks like when I got it hooked up. I got the harness and the washer hose taped together, and then I got both of them taped to this white piece of wire, and then as I pull on the wire, you're going to have to kind of pull at the bottom while finessing it through the hole at the top. We should be able to pull it through. Here I got it down through the bottom. So right now, once I get the wiring harness to pop through the hole, I can undo the white wire, pull that free, and then get the harness aligned where I need to. I think this grommet's in approximately the right location, but we should be able to move that or the wire / hose individually later. I did quite a bit in this step, but it should make sense. The main wiring harness had 2 relays. You poke a 1/4 inch hole in those little dots. That's where the 2 relays plug in. There is a plug-in for the electrical, so that has the battery positive, battery negative, and then the key-on switched wire, and that's just kind of a unpluggable connector with just the powered ends. This powers the whole harness. we have this piece, which is going to plug into the washer tank when we mount that, as well as the washer hose. And I might need to pull a little bit more of that out of there. It looks a little short. Through the grommet, all the wires have to go. So a lot of times I'll just pop the grommet out and then slide the wires through and then put it back in. The switch wires go up to that panel right there. We got to cut out the cutouts for that. That hasn't been done yet. Here's where the two wiring harnesses connect. It's pretty easy. You really can't screw it up. You just color match the wires. Orange, blue, red, green, brown. And then I'll tape that up. And then they come down through the frame there. That goes up there. And then eventually we're going to run the big plug and the hose over to approximately where the rearview mirror is, and then this back one goes around back here, but we can do that once the roof is on. This isn't even a wire we're going to be using in this install, but if you put a dome light in or some other accessories, you have a key-on power wire for something like that. I'm going to get this straightened up, and then I believe the next part in the instructions is to cut out those holes. So yeah, we ran the upper and lower wiring harnesses. We just need to cut out the switch holes. Yeah, it looks like I kind of just jumped ahead as far as hooking up those relays. And then we get to the point of installing the washer tank and mounting the wiper motor to the windshield. So I'll get the washer tank put on here and the cutouts made. Here we got the switches installed in the dash. You can really put them wherever you want. They show them going on the right hand side, but you can cut out any of those cutouts and put them in any position. And then I got the electrical hooked up on the back side. Also got this mount plate put on. 2 screws right here, 1 right there. These power cables are really stiff and I kind of use the same space, so I just went around the side. I'll maybe try to tuck them under after I get the bottle installed. When we put the bottle on, that is going to bolt on, you know, there to there. It's going to slide in like this. The only thing is we're going to want to put on the bottom hose and probably even that electrical connector before we actually start bolting it on. So this is the point we're going to need to figure out how long a hose we got. So it looks like I might need to pull it another, I don't know, 2-3 inches to get it so that it lines up with that hole. And then there's some 4 gold pieces of hardware that hold that on. One thing I will say, and I have done this before one time, is I dropped the nut and it went down here into the, I believe it was the clutch duct, and it was a big job to get it out of there. I had to take the floor panel off and everything, so make sure you don't drop any hardware down there. But I'll get those lines pulled out, hooked up, and get the wash tank installed. Here I got the bottle installed. You can see that it's kind of a hard mount. Screws onto that mount plate we have. Got the hookups. And then also ran the wires over and down. At this point we put the windshield washer itself on the windshield. So I'm going to pop the windshield out of the box, being that this machine didn't have one yet, and prep that for the wiper. Here I got the windshield. We need to drill out those holes. Usually I just use a step bit and drill them out to the appropriate size. There's going to be the big wiper stud, which is going to go in the middle, another wiper connector point, which is going on the side, and then the washer fluid spray nozzle is going to go through the other one, and that's going to hook up to the hose in the cab, and obviously the big plug-in is going to hook up to the wiper itself. So I'm going to get those drilled, mount it. There is a spacer that goes between the wiper attachment plate and the wiper motor to kind of just compensate for the thickness of that right there. So that should be just this bolt, that spacer, and then one of those black washers. And then the washer nozzle is going to use a nut, the other washer, and then a nut on the back side to pinch it in place. So here's what the wiper looks like installed. We have the wiper motor that came through, and that was just held down by a bigger nut and a bigger washer. Then there was this rubber kind of fitted gasket, or not really a gasket, like a fitting rubber grommet that goes over that just to make it look nice really. Then the wiper blade gets pushed on, and it's a tapered post, and that's held in place with a little washer and a nut. Just tighten that down. You can adjust the wiper as needed. I usually get it as high as possible so that, you know, the driver's not looking at it when they're driving. You know, it's not a distraction. And you know, it's about where it should be. They typically start to sag a little bit, you know, once they get used a little bit. This is the one I was talking about where there's a spacer. So let me grab the phone a little differently here. You can see it down in there. There's a spacer that goes between the wiper motor and then the windshield, and then just the bolt and the washer. And then you have the spray nozzle, which is, the spray nozzle goes through a nut, then a washer, then through the windshield, and then on the back side you have another washer and a nut, and you tighten it. And then our spray hose will actually get pushed on that, and I usually zip tie it on that as well, otherwise it tends to drip a little bit. So right now I'm going to put the dash back together, because we're going to have that top cap on in order to be able to put the windshield in. Here I got the top cap back on. You may not have had yours off. I had just put a heater in this one, so that's why I had mine off. We're going to need to put that top piece on, because that's what the top of the windshield actually sits up against. One thing I will say, which is pretty easy to do, is when you're putting this back on, make sure your wire and your hose don't get pinched between that and the bar. Happened to me one time, and then my wiper hose didn't work. So being that this one has a radio, we kind of just have to tuck the wires up in there, you know, obviously making sure they don't get pinched when we hook everything back down. If you don't have a radio, this probably isn't going to be an issue. You can just put the top cap on and then kind of zip tie your wires out of the way as you go across. But being that we do have the radio, you can't really see what's going on once it's in there, so we kind of have to get the wires put into place. So just be careful. I'm going to snap it back into place and screw down all the screws that we took out at the beginning. Windshield in. Took 2 people usually to do it right. I don't know if you've seen a video where I've talked about this, but with the lock and ride clamps, I recommend loosening up that nut, getting the windshield in place, tightening the levers, and then tightening up the nuts after the windshield is installed to get the best fit. Here all we got to do is plug in this connector, and then you can kind of take the wiring and the whole connector and shove it up in there, kind of make it disappear. And then we got your washer hose, which comes out through there. I already got it hooked up to the fitting, and then I run a zip tie to make sure that's tight. And then here's the relocated mirror, obviously. So I'll get those hooked up, and then we should actually be able to test it. So fill the washer fluid tank full of washer fluid, and then we can actually test the switches once we get it hooked up. So here's everything fully installed. I haven't put the roof back on, or the hood obviously, but that's the wiper fully installed on the windshield. I did fill the wash tank with fluid, and then to test it, we got high and low settings for the wiper, and then the washer fluid. I guess this is the first time I've ran it. Spreads that out. Make sure it's not dripping inside the cab. I've seen that happen several times on the Generals. And pretty nice kit. You know, I wish the blade would go over a little bit more to the passenger side, but it's actually doing pretty good for being a single blade system. And then the washer works pretty well. Is probably one little gripe that I have is it'd be nice to get that fitting to come out maybe another 1/4 inch. But then, you know, so it's not hitting so much of the black plastic, it's getting more of the spray on the windshield. But if you do that, then you don't have enough threads on the inside to hook the hose to, and then it starts to leak all the time. So find a happy medium. You know, I probably left 3/8 of an inch of threads on the inside to hook my hose to. So obviously, if you got a roof, throw that back on. This is that one wire that we had left over, which if you put like a dome light in or something like that, that's what this plugs into. They just include it in the harness. So it's not needed for the wiper, but is for some other accessories that are mounted to the roof. So if you're not using it, you can just bundle it up and zip tie it off to the side or zip tie it underneath the roof. And that's that. Obviously, if you got any questions, throw them in the comment section. If I missed a step, it's certainly possible. But thanks for watching.